Lieutenant Alan Clark stood at the viewport of Outpost Epsilon, watching the approaching Zatharian ship. The vessel's sharp angles and deep purple hull made it look like a predator swimming through the darkness of space. Alan adjusted the collar of his suit, which felt unusually snug today. Not uncomfortable, just different. Nervous, Lieutenant? Alan turned to see diplomat Olivia Green walking toward him. Her dark hair was pulled back in a neat bun, and her blue diplomatic uniform was perfectly pressed. Not nervous, ma'am. Just cautious, Alan replied. Something feels off about this meeting. Olivia nodded. Admiral Wright feels the same way. That's why she sent you instead of the regular security detail. Alan had been wondering about his sudden reassignment to diplomatic security. He was a combat specialist, not a bodyguard. Now it made sense. Tensions with the Zatharians had been growing for months. How much do they know about me? Alan asked. As far as they're concerned, you're just standard security, Olivia said with a small smile. They don't need to know about your special suit. Alan glanced down at what appeared to be ordinary security armor. Only a few people knew that beneath the plain exterior was the most advanced combat technology humans had ever created, the CX-700 Combat Exoskin. It looked like normal body armor, but it contained millions of nanomachines that could transform it into a full battle system in seconds. Remember, this is still a peaceful meeting, Olivia said. The suit is just a precaution. The station's communication system beeped. Zatharian vessel requesting docking permission, announced the station's AI. Here we go, Alan muttered. 30 minutes later, Alan stood at attention behind Olivia in Outpost Epsilon's main conference room. The Zatharians had arrived with a larger group than expected. 8 tall, gray-skinned aliens entered the room, their 4-fingered hands resting near the weapons at their sides. They all wore ceremonial armor with sharp ridges that made them look even more intimidating. Commander Krex, the leader of the Zatharian delegation, stepped forward. He was taller than the others, with deep scars across his face that humans had learned were signs of honor in Zatharian culture. Diplomat Green, Krex said, his translator making his voice sound metallic. We come to discuss the border dispute near the Cygnus sector. Welcome, Commander, Olivia replied with a slight bow. We appreciate your willingness to resolve this matter peacefully. Alan watched the other Zatharians carefully. Something wasn't right. They were positioning themselves around the room in what looked suspiciously like a tactical formation. One of them kept touching a device on his wrist. Another was scanning the room's exits. As Olivia and Krex sat down at the table, Alan moved slightly closer to her. The tiny earpiece he wore came to life with a soft voice. Lieutenant, this is Nova, your suit's AI. I'm detecting unusual energy readings from the Zatharians' weapons. They appear to be fully charged, not in safety mode as protocol requires. Alan gave no outward sign that he'd heard, but he casually moved his hand near the hidden activation switch on his wrist. Just in case, the meeting began normally enough, with Olivia explaining the human position on the disputed territory. But when she reached for a datapad to show some star charts, she accidentally knocked over her water glass. As she moved quickly to catch it, her hand made a sweeping gesture across the table. The room suddenly went silent. Every Zatharian stiffened, their eyes fixed on Olivia's hand. You dare? Commander Krex said, rising slowly from his chair. You dare make the sign of dominance in our presence? Olivia looked confused. I'm sorry, Commander. I don't understand. That gesture, Krex said, pointing at her hand. In our culture, it is used by masters to command slaves. You insult us deeply. It was an accident, Olivia explained quickly. I was trying to catch my glass. In human culture, that gesture has no meaning at all. The other Zatharians had moved closer, forming a tight circle around the humans. Alan could see their hands moving toward their weapons. A convenient excuse, said one of the Zathrians, who wore darker armor than the others. Perhaps humans need another lesson in respect. Sub-Commander. Vex, Krex said. Perhaps the human speaks truth. Vex made a dismissive sound. They have been pushing against our borders for months. This is just another sign of their true intentions. Olivia stood up slowly. Commander Krex, I assure you, no disrespect was intended. We can discuss cultural differences as part of our negotiations. Perhaps, Krex said, we should discuss territory concessions instead, to make up for this insult. Alan could see Olivia struggling to keep the negotiations on track. This was spiraling out of control too quickly. It felt planned, like the Zathrians had been looking for any excuse. Commander, Olivia said firmly, Earthfleet does not respond to threats. We came here in good faith. Vex moved forward suddenly, pushing past Krex. His hand shot out and struck Olivia across the face, sending her stumbling backward. Alan moved instantly, stepping between them. The room froze. Touch her again, Alan said quietly, and it will be the last thing you do. The Zathrians looked at each other, then began to laugh. A harsh clicking sound that filled the room. Look at the human warrior, Vex said mockingly, standing there in his ceremonial shell, thinking it will protect him. Krex studied Alan with yellow eyes. Your species' protective gear is known to us. Primitive plating over fragile bones. What do you think you can do against 8 Zathrian warriors? Around the room, the aliens drew their weapons. Glowing energy pistols pointed at Alan and Olivia. Your human shell cannot protect you, Commander, Krex said, stepping closer. Perhaps we should remind your species of its place in the galaxy. Alan looked around calmly, assessing the situation. 8 armed Zathrians. 1 diplomat to protect. No backup within 20 minutes. Last chance. Alan said quietly, Put your weapons down and continue the talks. Vex fired his weapon at the ceiling, leaving a scorched hole in the metal. No more talks. Now we take what we want. Alan looked at Olivia, who was touching her bruised cheek. He gave her a small nod. I'm sorry it has to be this way, Alan said, turning back to the Zathrians. Then he pressed the hidden switch on his wrist dot to the Zathrians. It seemed like nothing happened at first. Then they noticed the faint blue lines appearing across Alan's formerly plain armor. The lines spread and connected, forming patterns that pulsed with energy. The shoulder plates expanded slightly. The chest piece thickened. A thin layer of what looked like liquid metal spread across Alan's exposed neck and the lower part of his face. What trickery is this? Krex demanded, taking a step back. Alan smiled slightly as his helmet formed around his head, leaving only his eyes visible behind. A glowing blue visor. Not trickery, Commander, Alan said, his voice now deeper through the suit's systems. Just technology you haven't seen before. The Zathrians raised their weapons as Alan's suit completed its transformation from basic security armor to full combat mode. They had no idea what they had just provoked. The room seemed to hold its breath as Alan's suit finished transforming. What had looked like basic security armor seconds ago was now clearly advanced combat technology. The previously dull surface now glowed with blue energy lines that pulsed with power. The shoulders and chest had expanded with additional armor plating, and a sleek helmet covered Alan's head. Combat protocols initiated, a calm female voice said inside Alan's helmet. Threat assessment complete. 8 hostile combatants. Diplomatic protection priority engaged. Thanks, Nova, Alan replied quietly to his suit's AI assistant. Commander. Krex recovered from his surprise first. Fire, he ordered. The Zathrians raised their weapons and fired. Energy blasts filled the room with bright purple light. Olivia ducked behind the conference table, but Alan stood his ground. The energy bolts struck his suit from all directions, but instead of damaging it, The blast seemed to sink into the armor, leaving only faint ripples of blue light where they hit. Interesting, Nova commented. Zathrian weapons operate on a phase-shifted energy frequency, adapting shields accordingly. Inside his helmet, Alan smiled. This was why the CX-700 was special. It learned and adapted in real time. Warning, Nova continued. Diplomat Green remains exposed to potential ricochets. Alan didn't need to be told twice. He moved with a speed that surprised even himself, leaping over the table and landing beside Olivia. The suit enhanced his natural movements, making him faster and stronger than any unaugmented human could be. Stay down, he told her, then turned to face the Zathrians. They were reloading their weapons, looking shocked that their first volley had no effect. My turn, Alan said. He raised his hand, and the armor around his forearm reconfigured, forming a small but powerful sonic disruptor. He fired it at the floor between the Zathrians, not wanting to hurt them seriously. The blast sent 3 of them flying backward, their weapons skittering across the floor. Nova, scan for weaknesses in their armor, Alan said as he moved forward. Scanning. Nova replied. Zathrian armor appears strongest at chest and head. Joint areas show 60% less protection. Recommendation: target limbs for non-lethal takedowns. The closest Zathrian swung a blade at Alan's neck. Alan caught the alien's wrist with enhanced speed, squeezing just enough to force the weapon from his grip. Then he pushed the Zathrian away, careful not to use his full strength. I don't want to hurt any of you, Alan announced, but I will protect Diplomat Green. Sub-Commander Vex snarled and fired his weapon again, this time at Olivia. Alan moved instantly, his body flowing like water as the suit predicted the shot's path. He caught the energy blast on his palm, where the suit absorbed it completely. I warned you, Alan said. He lunged forward, moving faster than the Zathrians could track. In seconds, he had disarmed 3 more of them, his movements precise and controlled. The suit was doing most of the work, guiding his hands to the exact points where the Zathrians were vulnerable without causing serious injury. Commander Krex backed away, his eyes wide. What manner of technology is this? Something you weren't supposed to see, Alan replied honestly. But you didn't leave me much choice. 2 Zathrians tried to attack him from behind. Without turning, Alan's suit projected a brief energy field that knocked them back. In his helmet display, Alan could see everything around him, the suit's sensors giving him perfect 360-degree awareness. Alan, Olivia called out from behind the table. Try not to damage them too badly. We still need this peace treaty. Alan nodded. Nova, adjust to minimum force protocols. Adjusted, Nova confirmed. May I suggest using the neural disruptor? It will temporarily disable their motor functions without causing pain. Do it, Alan agreed. The suit reconfigured again, this time producing a soft humming sound. The remaining standing Zathrians suddenly froze, their muscles locking up before they collapsed gently to the floor. What did you do to them? Olivia asked, cautiously standing up. They're fine, Alan assured her. Just temporarily paralyzed. They'll recover in about 10 minutes. Only Commander Krex and Sub-Commander Vex remained standing, having been outside the neural disruptor's range. Vex raised his weapon again, but Krex held up his hand. Stop, Vex, he ordered. This is not a battle we can win. Vex looked like he wanted to argue, but lowered his weapon reluctantly. Krex turned to Alan with new respect in his yellow eyes. You could have killed us all. That was never the goal, Alan replied. We came here to talk peace. Olivia stepped forward, straightening her diplomatic uniform. Despite her bruised cheek, she maintained her professional composure. Commander Krex, I suggest we restart our discussion. this time with a better understanding of each other. Krex studied Alan's suit with obvious interest. Your people claimed to have only basic defensive technology. This is clearly not basic. We never lied, Olivia said carefully. We simply didn't volunteer information about our military capabilities. Just as I suspect, you haven't told us everything about yours. A small smile crossed Krex's face. A fair point, Diplomat Green. Nova, can you show me the suit's status? Alan asked quietly. Inside his helmet, displays appeared showing energy levels, system integrity, and weapons status. Everything was operating at near perfect efficiency, with only 8% of the suit's power used so far. All systems nominal, Lieutenant. Clark, Nova reported. I've taken the liberty of sending an alert to Admiral Wright about the situation. Good, Alan said. He turned to Olivia. We should expect backup in about 20 minutes. Vax suddenly lunged forward, pulling a hidden weapon from his armor. It wasn't aimed at Alan, but at Commander Krex. Traitor, Vax shouted. You would negotiate with these humans after they've hidden such weapons from us? Alan's suit reacted before he could even think, projecting a shield that deflected Vex's shot. Then he moved between Krex and Vex, catching the sub-commander's arm and carefully disarming him. I suggest you calm down, Alan said, holding Vex firmly. Krex looked stunned. You protected me. Why? Because that's what we do, Olivia answered, stepping forward. We came here for peace, Commander, not war. Krex looked from Olivia to Alan, then to his unconscious guards and the restrained Vex. Perhaps, he said slowly, we have misjudged humans. It happens, Alan said, his suit powering down slightly. As the immediate threat passed. Now, about those negotiations, ... Olivia smiled at Alan, then turned to Krex. Shall we start again, Commander? This time with all cards on the table? Krex nodded slowly. Yes, but first, I must know. He gestured to Alan's suit, which was still glowing with blue energy lines. What do you call this technology? This, Alan said, his helmet retracting. To show his face, is the CX-700 Combat Exoskin. And you really don't want to see what it can do, at full power. For the first time, something like fear showed in Commander Krex's eyes. 2 days after the incident at Outpost Epsilon, Alan and Olivia stood on the bridge of the starship Valiant. Captain Lisa Bell, a tall woman with short gray hair, looked at them with concern. The Zathrian High Council has recalled all their diplomats, Captain Bell said. They're saying the combat Exoskin is proof that humans have been planning for war all along. Olivia sighed. That's not true. The Exoskin is defensive technology. Try telling them that, Captain Bell replied. Our sensors show 3 Zathrian. Warships have left their main base. They're heading toward human space. Alan felt a weight in his stomach. The situation was getting worse, not better. Commander Krex understood, Alan said. He was ready to continue talks. Commander Krex has been replaced, Captain Bell told them. The new commander is someone called Zarn. He's known for being much more aggressive. The ship's communication officer called out, Captain, incoming message from Earth Command. The main screen lit up showing Admiral Samantha Wright. Her face was serious. Captain Bell, we have new intelligence, the Admiral said. The Zathrians have been planning an attack for months. What happened at Outpost Epsilon just gave them an excuse to move earlier than planned. Alan and Olivia exchanged looks. This explained why the Zathrians had been so quick to turn violent. What are your orders, Admiral? Captain Bell asked. Return to Earth immediately, Admiral Wright replied. Lieutenant Clark's combat data from the Exoskin is too valuable to risk. We need to analyze it before the Zathrians launch a full attack. The screen went dark. Captain Bell immediately turned to her crew. Set course for Earth, maximum speed. she ordered. Alan touched the wrist of his suit. It looked like normal clothing now, but he could feel it humming softly against his skin. Always ready. Nova, he said quietly, what's our status? All systems? Optimal, Nova's voice replied in his ear. I've completed analysis of the Zathrian weapons. Their energy signature is quite fascinating. Save that for the scientists back home, Alan told her. The ship's engines rumbled as the Valiant turned and accelerated toward Earth. On the main display, Alan could see the stars stretch as they entered faster-than-light travel, 6 hours into their journey. Alarm bells suddenly rang throughout the ship. Captain, the sensor officer shouted. 3 Zathrian ships just appeared directly in our path. They must have known our route. Captain Bell's face hardened. Evasive maneuvers. Shields up. The Valiant shuddered as it dropped out of faster-than-light travel. On the main screen, Alan could see 3 purple Zathrian warships. They were much larger than the diplomatic vessel he had seen at Outpost Epsilon. They're charging weapons, the sensor officer reported. Return fire, Captain Bell ordered. The Valiant's weapons fired, bright beams of energy shooting toward the Zathrian ships. But the aliens were ready. Their shields absorbed most of the hits, and then they fired back. The ship rocked violently. Sparks flew from several control panels. Direct hit to our main engine, an officer reported. We're losing power. Can we jump back to faster-than-light? Captain Bell asked. Negative, Captain. Engines are too damaged. Alan turned to Captain Bell. Captain, let me help. She looked at him, then at his seemingly ordinary clothes. What can you do? The CX-700 has more capabilities than what I showed at Outpost Epsilon, Alan explained. It was designed for space combat, too. Captain Bell hesitated, then nodded. Do what you can, Lieutenant. Another hit rocked the ship. The lights flickered. They're preparing to board us, the sensor officer called out, detecting multiple small craft launching from their ships. Alan turned to Olivia. Stay on the bridge. It's the safest place. She grabbed his arm. Be careful, Alan. He nodded, then ran from the bridge. In the corridor, he pressed the activation switch on his wrist. Full combat mode, Nova, he ordered. The suit transformed around him, faster than before. The nanomachines flowed like liquid metal, covering his body with advanced armor. Blue energy lines appeared, glowing brighter than they had at Outpost Epsilon. Space combat protocols engaged, Nova announced. External oxygen supply activated. Magnetic boots online. Alan headed toward the lower decks, where the Zathrians would likely try to enter the ship. As he ran, he passed crew members preparing for battle with standard weapons. They looked at his glowing suit with surprise and hope. Lieutenant Clark, Nova said, sensors detect hull breach in Section 4. Zathrians are entering through the cargo bay. On my way, Alan replied. When he reached the cargo bay, the scene was chaotic. The outer door had been forced open, and air was rushing out into space. Several Zathrian soldiers had already entered, wearing their own spacesuits and carrying heavy weapons. Alan's suit automatically magnetized to the floor, keeping him from being pulled into space. The Zathrians spotted him and opened fire. Energy blasts hit Alan's suit from multiple directions. This time, instead of simply absorbing the energy, his suit redirected it, channeling the power into its own systems. Energy reserves increasing, Nova reported. These weapons are much stronger than the ones at Outpost Epsilon. Let's put that energy to good use, Alan said. He raised both hands, and the suit formed powerful energy projectors over his palms. Alan fired, sending concentrated blasts at the Zathrians' weapons, disabling them without harming the aliens themselves. One of the Zathrians spoke into a communicator. Seconds later, more soldiers poured through the breach, these ones carrying different weapons. Physical projectile weapons, Nova warned. I cannot absorb those. Then we'll have to dodge, Alan said. The suit enhanced his speed and reflexes he moved between cargo containers, avoiding the hail of projectiles. The Zathrians were spreading out, trying to surround him. Nova, can you seal that breach? Alan asked, ducking behind a large container. Affirmative, but I will need to redirect power from shields temporarily. Do it, Alan ordered. He felt the suit grow slightly cooler as power shifted. Then he watched as nanomachines flowed from his suit toward the breached door. They spread like a web, creating a temporary seal that stopped the air from escaping. The Zathrians, realizing what he was doing, concentrated their fire on him. Several projectiles hit his suit. The impact felt even through the advanced armor. Whole breach sealed, Nova announced. Repressurizing cargo bay. With the immediate danger of space exposure gone, Alan could focus fully on the intruders. He moved quickly between them, disarming them one by one with precise strikes. The suit guided his movements, identifying weak points in the Zathrian's armor. Lieutenant, Captain Bell's voice came through his communication system. We have orders on multiple decks. The engine room is under attack. I'll get there as soon as I can, Captain, Alan replied, dodging another attack dot as he disabled the last Zathrian in the cargo bay. Alan looked up to see a familiar face entering through a side door. Hello again, human, said Sub-Commander Vex, now wearing the insignia of a full commander. I've been looking forward to meeting your combat suit again. Vex raised a weapon, unlike any Alan had seen before. It glowed with a strange red light. This was designed specifically for you, Vex said with a cruel smile. Let's see how your fancy suit handles it. He fired, and Alan's world exploded in pain. Pain shot through Alan's body as the red beam from Vex's weapon hit his suit. For the first time, the CX-700 couldn't fully protect him. He fell to one knee, his vision blurring inside the helmet. System damage at 28%, Nova recorded, her usually calm voice sounding concerned. Unknown energy type detected. Attempting to adapt. Vex laughed, the sound echoing in the cargo bay. Your human technology is impressive, but we've been studying it since our encounter at Outpost Epsilon. This weapon targets the connection between your suit and your nervous system. Alan forced himself to stand, fighting through the pain. Nova, options? Redirecting power to neural interfaces. Attempting to block the disruptive frequency. Vex fired again. This time Alan managed to dodge, the red beam missing him by inches. He dove behind a large cargo container, buying himself a few seconds. I need more than blocking, Nova, Alan said through gritted teeth. I need a counter. Working on it, Nova replied. The weapon uses a modified version of Zathrian communication technology. If I can match the frequency. Alan didn't wait for her to finish. He rolled out from behind the container and fired a quick energy blast at Vex. The Zathrian commander easily sidestepped it, smiling confidently. You're not as fast now, are you, human? Vex taunted. Fast enough, Alan replied. He fired again, not at Vex, but at the ceiling above him. Metal debris rained down, forcing Vex to dodge. Using the distraction, Alan sprinted toward the cargo bay door. He needed to reach the engine room, where other Zathrians were attacking. Even with his suit damaged, he was still the crew's best defense. Nova? Ship status? Alan asked as he ran through the corridors. Multiple breaches on decks 2 and 3. 27 Zathrian soldiers detected on board. The engine room is under heavy attack. Alan reached an intersection and stopped. Down one corridor, he could hear weapons fire and shouting. The engine room was in that direction. Down the other corridor was the path back to the bridge, where Olivia was. Lieutenant Clark, Captain Bell's voice came through his con system. "They've broken through to the engine room. We can't hold them much longer." That decided it. Alan turned toward the engine room, running at full speed. His suit enhanced his movements, but he could feel it wasn't operating at full capacity. The damage from Vex's weapon had affected more systems than he'd realized. "Nova, I need that countermeasure," Alan said urgently. "Almost there," Nova replied, adjusting shield frequency to match the inverse of the weapon's energy pattern. Alan reached the engine room door to find it half melted. Inside, he could see Zathrian soldiers advancing on a group of crew members who had barricaded themselves behind equipment. Without hesitation, Alan charged in. His suit systems automatically targeted the nearest threats, highlighting them in his helmet display. He moved quickly between the Zathrians, disarming two before they could even turn around. "It's the human in the suit," one of the Zathrians shouted. They all turned toward him, weapons raised. Alan braced himself for impact. "Shield adaptation complete," Nova announced just as they fired. The red beams hit Alan's suit, but this time, instead of pain, he felt a strange, tingling sensation. The energy was being absorbed and redirected. "Thanks, Nova," Alan said with relief. "Don't thank me yet," Nova replied. "The adaptation is incomplete. I can only absorb 70% of the energy. The rest is still affecting your systems." It was better than nothing. Alan moved forward, engaging the Zathrians directly. His combat training combined with the suit's enhanced capabilities made him a formidable opponent, even with the suit not at full power. As he fought, Alan noticed something strange. The Zathrians were focusing more on the engine room controls than on the crew. They seemed to be trying to access specific systems rather than just damaging the engines. "They're not trying to destroy the ship," Alan realized. "They're trying to take it." "Correct," Nova confirmed. "Their attack pattern suggests they want to capture this vessel intact." That changed everything. If the Zathrians captured a human starship with its technology, it could shift the balance of power significantly. Alan fought with renewed purpose, working his way toward the main engine controls. 3 Zathrians stood there, connecting devices to the ship's systems. "Stop them," a human engineer shouted. "They're downloading our engine specifications." Alan raised his hand to fire, but before he could, a familiar red beam hit him from behind. Pain surged through his body again as he fell forward. "Did you think I would let you escape so easily?" Vex said, walking into the engine room. His weapon was smoking slightly, obviously operating at high power. Alan tried to stand, but his suit's systems were flickering. Damage warnings flashed across his helmet display. "Nova, status," Alan whispered. "Suit integrity at 42%, Nova reported. Neural interface damaged. Recommend immediate power conservation mode." That wasn't an option. If Alan powered down, now the Zathrians would take the ship, and everyone on board would be captured or worse. "Alternative options?" Alan asked, slowly rising to one knee. "There is one possibility," Nova said hesitantly. "I can redirect all remaining power to offensive systems for a single, concentrated burst. It would temporarily disable all Zathrian technology within range." "Including their weapons?" "Yes, but it would also disable most of the suit's functions. You would be essentially unprotected for approximately 3 minutes while systems reset." 3 minutes was a long time in combat, but Alan didn't see another choice. "Do it," he ordered. "Preparing energy pulse," Nova confirmed. "You should brace yourself against something solid." Alan grabbed onto a nearby support beam as his suit began to hum loudly. Energy lines that normally glowed blue now pulsed with white light. Vex noticed the change and raised his weapon. "Whatever you're planning, it won't work," Vex said, firing again. This time, the suit absorbed the energy completely, adding it to the building charge. "Energy pulse ready," Nova announced. Activating in 3, 2, 1. A wave of bright white energy exploded outward from Alan's suit. It passed through the engine room like a silent shockwave. Every Zathrian device, including their weapons and communication equipment, suddenly sparked and went dead. Vex looked at his now useless weapon in shock. "What have you done?" Alan's suit powered down to basic life support, leaving him vulnerable, but he wasn't defenseless. Years of combat training had prepared him for fighting without technological advantages. He charged at Vex, tackling the surprised Zathrian commander to the ground. Around the engine room, the human crew members seized the opportunity, overpowering the Zathrians, whose technology had failed them. 3 minutes until systems reset, Nova's voice said weakly in Alan's ear as he fought Vex hand to hand. "Conserve your strength, Lieutenant." 3 minutes. Alan had to hold on for just 3 minutes dot, and then he felt the ship shudder as new weapons fire hit the hull. The battle was far from over. The ship shook again as another blast hit the hull. Alan struggled with Vex on the engine room floor, both of them fighting for control. Without his suit's enhanced strength, Alan found the Zathrian commander surprisingly strong. "Your ship is lost, human," Vex growled. "My soldiers have disabled your weapon systems. The rest of our fleet will be here soon." Alan didn't waste breath responding. He focused on the fight, using techniques he had learned during years of training. Vex might be stronger, but Alan was faster and more skilled in hand-to-hand combat. Voice came over the ship's communication system. "All crew, this is Captain Bell. Earth Defense Fleet ships have been detected entering the area. Hold on for 5 more minutes." Hope surged through Alan. They just needed to last a little longer. "System restart in 30 seconds. Nova's voice said in his ear. Vex suddenly pulled a small blade from his armor and swung it at Alan's face. Without the suit's protection, it sliced across his cheek, drawing blood. Alan ignored the pain and grabbed Vex's wrist, twisting until the Zathrian dropped the blade. "You fight well for a human," Vex admitted, surprise in his yellow eyes. "I fought well before I had the suit," Alan replied, landing a solid blow to Vex's midsection. Around them, the human crew had managed to subdue most of the Zathrian soldiers. The ship's security team had arrived and was securing prisoners. Systems coming back online, Nova announced. Alan felt the familiar hum as his suit powered up again. The nanomachines flowed across his body, sealing the cut on his cheek and restoring the armor's integrity. Strength returned to his limbs as the suit's enhancements reactivated. Vex saw the change and knew his advantage was gone. He made one desperate lunge, trying to reach his fallen weapon. Alan moved faster, enhanced by the suit once more. He grabbed Vex and lifted him off the ground. "It's over, Commander," Alan said. The ship rocked again with weapons fire, but this time it was different. Through the viewport, Alan could see energy beams striking the Zathrian ships. Earth Defense Fleet vessels had arrived, their advanced weapons cutting through the Zathrian shields. "Lieutenant Clark," Captain Bell's voice came through his comm. "Report to the bridge immediately. Bring your prisoner." Alan secured Vex's hands with restraints and marched him through the corridors. Crew members they passed looked at Alan with newfound respect. Word of how he had fought the Zathrians, even without his suit's full power, had spread quickly. When they reached the bridge, Alan found Captain Bell and Olivia waiting. Through the main viewport, he could see the Zathrian ships, retreating, pursued by Earth vessels. "Lieutenant," Captain Bell said with a nod of approval. "Well done." Olivia rushed to Alan, her eyes widening at the sight of his damaged suit and the blood on his face. "Are you all right?" "I'll live," Alan assured her. "Nova is already repairing. The suit and my cut is superficial." Captain Bell turned to Vex, who stood tall, despite being captured. Commander Vex, you have attacked a diplomatic vessel. That's an act of war. We were already at war, Vex replied coldly. Your hidden combat technology proved that. Olivia stepped forward. The exoskeleton is defensive technology. We never planned to use it against your people until you attacked us. The communication officer called out, Captain, incoming transmission from Earth Command. The main screen lit up showing Admiral Wright. She looked tired but relieved. Captain Bell, I see you've acquired a guest, the Admiral said, eyeing Vex. Good work holding the ship until reinforcements arrived. Thank Lieutenant Clark, Admiral. Captain Bell replied. Without him and that suit of his, we wouldn't have stood a chance. Admiral Wright nodded. Lieutenant, your combat data has been invaluable. The information Nova transmitted during the battle has already helped us adapt our defenses against their weapons. Vex looked surprised. Your suit was transmitting data, even while fighting? That's what the CX-700 was designed to do, Alan explained. Learn and adapt in real time, and share that information with our fleet. Admiral Wright continued. We've intercepted communications from the Zatharian High Council. There seems to be confusion in their command structure. Some leaders are pushing for all-out war, while others are urging caution. Because they now know what we're capable of, Olivia suggested. Exactly, the Admiral agreed. Commander Vex's attack has actually given us an opportunity. The Zatharians now realize we have technology they didn't anticipate. It's made some of their leaders reconsider whether war is in their best interest. Vex scowled, but remained silent. What happens now? Alan asked. Bring Commander Vex to Earth. Admiral Wright ordered. He'll be treated well as a prisoner of war. His presence might help convince the Zatharian Council to return to negotiations. After the transmission ended, Olivia approached Vex. Commander, I'm curious. You went to great lengths to attack us. Why? Vex was quiet for a moment, then answered. Your combat suits represent a threat to Zatharian dominance. For centuries, we have had the most advanced battle technology in this sector of space. That advantage kept us safe. And now you know you're not the only advanced species, Alan said. Yes, Vex admitted, and that frightens our leaders. Olivia nodded thoughtfully. Fear often leads to aggression, but it can also lead to respect and cooperation, if properly channeled. The Valiant's engines hummed as the ship changed course. For Earth, repair crews were already working to fix the damage from the battle. Alan stood by the viewport, watching the stars. Nova, what's the status of the suit? He asked quietly. Repairs at 72%, Nova replied. Full functionality should be restored within 6 hours. And what about the data we collected on there? Weapons? Already transmitted to Earth Defense Fleet. Engineers are working on countermeasures for all ships. Alan nodded, satisfied. What had started as a simple diplomatic security assignment had turned into something much bigger. The Zatharians had provoked a human in what they thought was just a ceremonial suit. Instead, they had discovered the full capabilities of human technology and determination. A week later, Alan stood in Admiral Wright's office on Earth. His suit looked like ordinary clothing again, the damage completely repaired. The Zatharian High Council has requested new peace talks, Admiral Wright told him. They've asked for Commander Krex to be reinstated as their representative. That's good news, Alan said. Krex seemed reasonable, unlike Vex. They've also specifically requested that you attend the negotiations, the Admiral added, with a small smile. It seems you made quite an impression. What about Vex? He'll be returned to his people as a gesture of good faith. Intelligence suggests he'll face consequences for acting without proper authorization. Alan nodded, thinking about everything that had happened. They thought they were dealing with someone in a simple suit, and instead they found out it was a combat exoskeleton. Admiral Wright finished. Sometimes the best way to maintain peace is to make sure potential enemies know exactly what they'd be facing if they chose war. As Alan left the office, Olivia was waiting for him. Ready for another diplomatic mission? She asked with a smile. Alan touched his wrist where the suit's activation switch was hidden. Always, he replied. Just remind me to duck if you knock over any more water glasses. Olivia laughed, and together they walked toward humanity's uncertain but hopeful future among the stars.